All right. Thank you, Weam, for joining me today on the Lion's Den. I'm very happy to have you. Everybody, Weam Namou is an Eric Hoffer award winning author of over 20 books, an international multi award winning filmmaker, journalist, and poet. Her two feature films have earned over 50 global awards. Pomegranate, the first Iraqi American feature narrative, was released to 25 countries earlier this year. She recently received a Kresge Arts Fellow for directing, and she is currently working on her third feature film, A Chaldean American Storyteller. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm excited for this because it's part of an ethnicity series that I've been working on for a while, and for our people. So um, I know there's some disagreement over the name, and I've had people come on to give their opinions on the two other names that are used, but I haven't had a Chaldean come on yet. So I'm excited for
I'm
that.
the first Chaldean.
You are. Right.
Somebody warned me. Somebody, by the way, warned me that I was walking into the lion's den today.
Well,
They,
you'll see, and then
I'll
you can
find
let me
out.
know. You can let me know.
I tried to armor myself, so but
Yeah,
we'll
you can,
see.
I mean, I'm not like I've had people come on with the Aramean identity, and it was very respectful and fine, and it was done.
Okay, I'll
Uh,
find out today. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, I would love
I'm
to hear
just
your
meeting
thoughts
you.
afterwards to see if
Okay.
that's the case. My mom is Chaldean. Her dad is from Aradin. Her mom is from Tilkepe. My father's Jordanian Arab. Um, this is exciting. The floor is yours, Uyam.
Well, again, thank you for having me. And I think you probably ended up inviting me because you saw some disputes and conversations happening on Twitter about the different background of originally where Chaldeans are from and whether or not ethnically they're Assyrian.
Right.
And I would like to start a little bit about how I got involved in this topic, aside from the fact that I am Chaldean and I'm a writer. So naturally, I would start being interested in my own heritage. It was actually the Westerners that really loved when I was submitting work to editors and agents. And they were very intrigued by my background. And so I kept doing more and more research, and I became more intrigued about it.
Mm.
My first book, it was the first Chaldean American novel in 2004 was came out. And when it came out, I had over 100 interviews and nobody asked me anything about the novel at all.
Mhm.
It was about my ethnicity.
Okay.
And so I started having to learn the history of it. It wasn't kind of my focus to do that. But then I thought, okay, well, if this is going to help bring awareness to my book and my background, that's fine. Fast forward, when did this happen? In 2014, right after what happened with ISIS, which, by the way, this is around the time of the 11-year anniversary, unfortunately, of what happened to Tilkepa, which my sisters went there recently, and it's just completely destroyed.
Mm.
After 2014, what happened, most artists, writers, influencers, leaders, and the Christian community, of course, along with other groups, whether it's Yazidis or Shia Muslims that were also affected, we became, kind of like activists, not necessarily everybody doing it in their own way. Whether it was, I wrote a book about this called Witnessing a Genocide, and I allowed each community to share their hardships and what they did to combat the terrorism that happened to their communities. And so you had painters that painted so much work. They became very prolific. For myself as a writer, I started writing more books. So that was initially what caused me to become more prolific, understanding that, hey, people can come out and use different tactics to try to destroy you. Luckily, because of the internet, because of technology, they were only able to do so much. But I realized the importance of storytelling, of maintaining our stories through that way. A year later, then arguments. I was in so many meetings. I'm a journalist, and so I was writing for different publications, but what I wrote for most is the Chaldean News. And so I would be invited whenever there was delegates, whether from Washington or Iraq, because I knew Arabic and Chaldean. And so I would sit through these meetings to write about them, and not share my opinion necessarily, but just to listen, which thank God for that, because I really learned a lot. And then I started realizing about this name thing that was like a train. Like you have the Syriacs and the Arameans, and then you have the Assyrians and the Chaldeans. And nobody wanted to come to a solution or a word to combine, to become the umbrella of all the different groups. That was very sad, because I think it's not too late for us to find a solution to this. But I did understand, though, how each community didn't want to relinquish their names. I mean, imagine, why are we even holding on, or why do we care what ISIS did if it wasn't about really destroy, aside from the violence? I mean, I'm not talking about that, but then trying to destroy our history is because we care about our history, we care about our heritage. And that's part of them even targeting us as human beings had to do with that. So I saw this thing going on, and then I had a friend who he took, I'm not an aggressive person, so I handle things differently. And he was handling things a little bit aggressively, where he started reaching out to Congress about the Assyrians. Now, at that point, I have friends from all over the world. I have Muslim friends, I have Christian, of course I have Christian, I have Assyrian friends, very dear friends. I have, where's my Mesopotamian goddesses, Paul Betu, his art is on it because he's an amazing artist. Actually, Assyrians are amazing artists in general. I know a couple of them that are like that. So he was taking this, he was taking things further than I would have liked, because at the time we were working together, I was the president of the Iraqi Artists Association. And I thought, you know what, this is not the way to handle. He said, well, they're trying to erase our name. And I said, well, this is not really the way to handle by going through Congress. Isn't there a different way to approach this? Let's use dialogue. Anyhow, him and I, we didn't agree on this part about how to handle it. And I really wanted to stay clear of this kind of controversy. It wasn't my main focus. I figured I'm not really into that, even regarding religiously or politically or anything like that, even though my stories may be that way. But I, as a person, I don't attach to that too closely. Fast forward 2019, I became the executive director of the Chaldean Cultural Center. We would post just a basic, just anything that has to do with Chaldeans. Just, it could be like a scholar that, he said something and then we post it. Or a woman that published a cookbook. And we would get this person, I screenshot one of their comments. It wasn't, of course, a real name. I'm so grateful for you using your real name. Sometimes I have, I think it's just, if we really reveal ourselves, it's okay to continue debate. Nobody's gonna really harm each other, I hope. So this person was very aggressive, very rude, just kept saying that we are, this is not our ethnicity and that we're affecting the Assyrian. And we never said anything about the Assyrian community. Never. It was just literally a statement about the Chaldeans. And they would get so upset. So my assistant at the time, she said, Weam, I want to bring this because she was in charge of the social media. She said, I want to bring this to your attention. And I said, as a writer, I said, and because I believe in this, I said, just let them vent whatever they want to say. You can even say, you just say something, just to not ignore them. Maybe they're getting worse by you ignoring them. And if she responded, that person would get even worse. Then it got to the point where it was really bullying. And I didn't want to tell her to block this person, but it really got bad, the things that they were saying. And it was very aggressive. So I said, you know what, just go ahead, Crystal, just go ahead and block them. Next thing I know, they jumped into my personal Facebook page and going on. And I said, would you like to come on and we talk about this instead of you being so angry? But that person kept being angry. And then I decided at that point, so this was in late 2019, maybe 2020, I decided, I already knew quite a bit, but I decided to delve even deeper. And at the time, especially being new to the Chaldean Cultural Center and managing the museum, I just thought, anyways, you know what, this is good for me regardless. And I wanted to see this new, this term that we are ethnically Assyrian, but religiously belong to the Chaldean Catholic Church. Like, where did this come from? Because I was born in Baghdad. I came here to the United States in 1981. I had never heard this term, not even from my Assyrian friends. So I really was curious to see this. So I was just, and I like to read. So I was reading and investigating and trying to track it down. It became like a puzzle that I wanted to really piece together. That was really it. Nothing to have to do against being against Assyrians, not trying to what's the other thing, like,
Yeah,
not trying
not
to say they don't
against
exist, right?
side.
Like, I've never said that they don't exist or they completely vanished, but what I found was actually even the opposite of what they were saying, interestingly. So not only did I find out, like, okay, this particular term is that there is nowhere in, like, outside, if you're going to bring me modern books, you can't do that, because at this point, like right now, even in academia, people are saying men are women and women are men. You know, so I if I'm going to try to prove something and I'm going to have to dispute something, bring in manuscripts from before, and you can still, it doesn't mean, the academics who are disputing this, they would have to sit there through scientists, through different whatever they want to use. Okay, and we're in a different category. We are going to rely on artifacts and manuscripts. That's really what we have, right? Well, I have not seen that transition. And then it became, well, the Nestorians. Well, I have not seen that as well. And actually what I found out, or I don't know, because when I find out, I'm not God and neither is anybody else. So we don't know 100%. But based on the information that is showing up, it seems like scholars are saying that Nestorians were Chaldeans. Oh, by the way, before I even got this far with regards to Assyrians and Chaldeans, the other aspect that was that influenced me, once I met Maria Teresa Esmar, I just totally fell in love with this person who I felt like I didn't know her. I was introduced to her by Emily Porter, a scholar who was here at Shenandoah. She was giving a talk, and then I thought, oh my God, who's this Maria Teresa Esmar? I've never heard of her. So afterwards, I started reading her books. I did not pay attention to this Assyrian Chaldean. That was not even it didn't matter to me. But years later, as people kept persisting to, if I say Chaldean, they're somehow offended. And when I say people, the people that are offended, the majority of the people that I deal with, unless they don't tell me and they're behind those, different names or whatever, they don't have an issue with that. We both respect whatever we call ourselves, right? I decided to rewrite her book, to condense it, because it's like over at some references say over 700 pages. The copy I have is not. It's like over 660 pages, I think, for both volumes. And I said, I need to rewrite this because I want it to be available for schools. And they're not going to go and sit there and, read these 2 volumes and stuff. So I wanted to simplify it. And it was in the British language type of more complicated, published in 1844. Then during that same time, the whole dispute about Chaldeans and Assyrians kept coming up. So I started noticing that Maria Teresa Esmar was pointing to all these different ethnicities, but never said the word Assyrian. She came across all these different tribes. She came across Bedouins. She mentioned everybody. Well, not everybody, but she mentioned a lot of groups, but she never mentioned Assyrians. She mentioned the Assyria. She would quote Assyria in regards to biblical times. And she once said the people of Assyria. And so then I thought, wait a minute, because prior to that, I had already noticed that Tilkef was being changed. I noticed this from, let me see, I think it was in 2003 when one day I was doing research on the computer, and within like a couple of days, Tilkef went from being a Chaldean town to an Assyrian town online. So I thought, oh, like what happened here? Again, I wasn't as involved in that, but it did bother me that why was that change? But I let it go that my research wasn't based on that. I still called it a Chaldean town, which is what my ancestors, my parents have told me. So when I came across Maria Theresa Esmar, something similar happened where she was called a Chaldean and suddenly her identity was being called Assyrian. She did not identify as an Assyrian anywhere in her book. So then I started feeling like this is a more serious situation. It's not just a random, like some people wanting, just to change things here and there, or like this was affecting the internet. This was affecting how we get information. And that matters because then pretty soon, like right now, when you try to look things up, you have to, you have to argue with the internet if you're wanting to show something, to tell it like, hey, no, you can't just say, Julian the Chaldean, well, it was called Chaldean because, well, it was a term describing the Chaldeans, but not. And I said, but who says that? Who is saying that Julian the Chaldean in the 6th century AD was not a Chaldean and wrote a book about Chaldean, something related to Chaldean, and the internet is telling me, well, it's a complicated matter. And well, because they were describing, who's saying that though? I haven't seen a book when they were describing him or when he describes himself. He's saying, I'm giving myself this title because I'm not Chaldean, but because, the people were known as astrologers and this and that. So you are giving yourself the title of a different group of people that were described as such. So to me, it's just common sense. I felt like this is not making sense. And then again, the deeper I looked, I started finding that, okay, I'll give you the like one example, which is recent. And I'm not picking on you, Mr. Frederick Eprin, I think. But he's one of my most ones that interacts with me, because he keeps sending me this file that has, he says, over 60 references. Okay. So I looked it up. Okay. I looked up your references. A lot of them, by the way, the links do not work. And I understand it was published in, I believe the month was November 2002. Okay. But from the very first thing that is said, that he says, is Assyria, northern Mesopotamia, was never inhabited by a race of people called ethnically Chaldeans. History books never hinted of any sort of link between the ancient Chaldeans, who lived predominantly in southern Mesopotamia, whose title meant those dealing with soothsaying, astronomy, and astrology, and the modern-day Chaldeans of Mosul. Okay. This is the first paragraph. If you look it up right now, the paper is called Chaldeans Are Assyrians. Just, if you could just do this in real time, that is the first statement that he makes. And that in itself, I've written 10 pages of proof otherwise, and I don't even need to, we can all, anybody who's watching, and if they're not watching or in the future when they are, they can just Google the time period that the Assyrians, it was actually, okay, so what the quote I have is from a particular book, but you can Google it and actually you're not going to get the wrong answer. So this is called, so during my time as well in interviewing the people that at the Chaldean Cultural Center, we had this podcast that was going on where I would interview people from academia and scholars and such. This is called Weavers, Scribes, and Kings. Okay. And I interviewed Amanda H. Podemy. And on page 443, she talks about that Tiglath-Pileser III was even able to control Babylonia. You know, let me read from my notes, because I think what I did is I just, in my notes, I have it very,
no worries.
Yeah. In my notes, I'm very specific about what she said, whereas this it's a whole page. Okay. So this is what she says on page 443. Tiglath-Pileser III deposed a Chaldean man who had taken the throne of Babylon. And in 728 BC, the Assyrian king proclaimed himself to be king of Babylonia as well. This was a first. It marked the beginning of more than a century of rocky, often antagonistic relations between Assyria and Babylonia. Right at the start, Tiglath III deported hundreds of thousands of Chaldeans from Babylonia according to the king's inscription. I mean, his claim, then I ended up finding a lot more information, which I'm writing a book about this. So, I mean, I don't want to just just list all these things, but then there's more. These accounts from Tiglath inscriptions confirm the existence of the kingdom of Beit Sha'ili, its capital Dur Ilata, the campaign against it by Tiglath-Pileser III around 732 BC, and the subsequent deportation of 50,400 inhabitants. So in another book, which is written by Habib Hanona, he goes more specific. He starts breaking it down to numbers. So what I did, Habib Hanona's book is called Chaldeans in Exile. I took what he wrote and verified it on the internet, and it was true. There are, what Amanda Padamy writes is I guess she's totaling them up together. And she only mentions them in this because her whole book is not about this. But in Habib Hanona's book, he goes more specific and he quotes, and by the way, it was published in Arabic, recently translated in English, and so it's in the process of being published. So it'll be out soon where you can see those, and he has references. I'm just here to kind of show that the first of the matter is just something like a person who, by the way, Mr. Afram is really educated. I looked at his bio. He's an independent historian. He got his degree from Iraq, from the University of Mosul, but in engineering. Okay, so I'm not being disrespectful, or I'm not trying to say, because you can be an independent historian. It's not rocket science. Anybody now can just get on the computer and look up information. The only difference is that you have to be patient. You have to be patient enough to really dig. You can't just take somebody that will tell you, we're ethnically Assyrian, but belong to the Chaldean Catholic Church. And then you have to say, but that doesn't make any sense. Chaldean is not a religion. So what does that mean? Then you have to look into it. And don't just take the easy answer that, well, because in 1553, the Chaldeans united with Rome. Okay, but then why did the Pope give them the Chaldean name? Would the Pope just randomly just give that name, which, by the way, had survived before? If you see in history, you continue to see the name Chaldean pop up regularly. It wasn't something when we were engaging in these conversations on the internet, people said, well, yes, but they were not deported. They were deported to the southern region. They were not deported to the northern region. So that is also inaccurate. It says specifically, whether in Hanon's book or not, that the Assyrians were known that when they captured people, and this was not just even the Assyrians, even the Chaldeans, when they brought the Israelites, you bring them to your area because you want them, basically, you want to benefit from them. Okay, so they oftentimes they would incorporate them into their environments. And And then the other thing is regarding that they never were in the north, as if that would have been such a big deal for them to travel northward, is the Chaldean ruled lands of Nineveh and northern Mesopotamia from 626 BC to 539 BC. Under Nabopolassar, the Chaldean conquered the mighty Assyrian capital of Nineveh in 612 BC. This marked the end of Assyrian dominance and the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, also known as the Chaldean Empire. During the rule of Nineveh, the Chaldean extended their influence throughout northern Mesopotamia, leaving a lasting cultural imprint on the region. When their empire fell in 539 BC, the Chaldean were absorbed into the broader population of Mesopotamia, where they lived, thrived, and adapted in the culture change brought by their successive empires. Whether it was the Persians, the Greeks, the Parthians, and the Roman empires, each leaving their mark on the region and its people. Well, how do we know that? Well, I have a long list of Chaldeans that were later, if you do a light search online, and thank God for archives.org because they keep the original manuscripts. But if you do the research, it will originally say, it will give them a different identity as Assyrians. But if you dig deep, you see, no, they were Chaldeans, including Julian the Chaldean. But there's a lot of other names, including Maria Theresa Esmer, who did not even mention the word Assyrian, including Ilyas al-Musali, who traveled. He was the first Middle Easterner to travel to the Americas in the 17th century. Okay, in the 1600s, he traveled, and he was a Chaldean priest who a book was published about him, and the book was titled that he was the first Arab. Now, why, not to say, okay, there's nothing wrong with whoever your title is, but why are you changing identity? And this was by a scholar. And here is where you see how something like this can so easily be changed, where scholarly, he is given the title on the front of the book as an Arab. But when you start reading the book does, inside of the book, it identifies him correctly as a Chaldean. Then these little twists, they make a big difference, because this is where you're kind of manipulating history and you're manipulating people's identity, which in our case, especially since we've gone through what we've gone through for thousands of years, it becomes something that's very dear to you. And so when you are debating this, you are not really not being for, in my case, I'm not for or against Assyrians or anything like that. I am reading history and I'm finding out this information. Now, do I think that the Assyrians completely vanished? Based on what I've seen, I don't think so. But why is there a lack of all these individuals, the people that continued, the people that wrote their stories, even Joseph Naim, who in 1915 published a book when he was a priest who was tortured during the Ottoman Empire. He was a Chaldean. And by the way, I want to read something to you from that book. And if anybody wants to read about him, again, what I did is I rewrote these books in order, for the sake of the language, to condense them and make it an easier read, and to also include the correct identity on the cover. Not that there was a misidentity, but this is Shall This Nation Die? This is the original book. And it's two parts. The first part, he talks about himself and what he and his family endured during the Ottoman Empire. And he was Chaldean. And at this point, because it was published in 1915, he acknowledges the Assyrians, but he acknowledges that he's Chaldean. And then afterwards, after he escaped, when he went and gave tours all over the United States, I have news clips in his, I don't have my copy. I have the original copy. I mean, I don't have it. I don't want to get them. But I have images of these news clips where he brings awareness to the Chaldeans. One thing I want to say that's in here, this is on page 43 says, at the beginning of November 1915, a telegram from his beatitude, Emmanuel Thomas, the Chaldean patriarch of Babylon, suggested to me that I should go to Constantinople as chaplain to the Allied prisoners of war. I set out furnished with a permit from the governor of Aleppo. Pope Benedict, after several months' negotiations, had obtained from the Turkish government permission for priests to visit the prisoners' camp. They were, however, to be Chaldean. I thought that was kind of interesting. Why is he requesting that they be Chaldean? I talked to this with several people who are much older than me and who have read probably twice, if not more, from me, as I have. And he said that, well, one particular person that's coming to mind, he said that the reason would have likely been because the Chaldeans didn't try to fight, like they were more peaceful and didn't want to get involved politically. And that part of the reasons that the Assyrian name was given to another group of people was because they were more nationals and more willing to do that and to fight. And then the Westerners kind of wanted to see the difference of who they're dealing with. So this particular person who was an oppressor wanted the Chaldean because he wasn't intimidated by them, but probably like the British or the Westerners preferred to work with the Assyrians because they could be involved more in military. I mean, I don't know that's the reason, because, you know, but the fact that he put it specifically in the book, he never mentioned, oh, but he does mention this. I got to continue, sorry. I'm just going to tell you, because he talks about that on my arrival at Constantinople, the War Office granted me the exquisite papers. Let me see. Okay, I was accompanied by a young and very devoted priest from Smyrna, the Reverend Masolo, who, claiming to be a Chaldean by origin, because that's how strict that the priest had to be Chaldean. So what Joseph Naim is saying is like, well, he claimed to be Chaldean, but he doesn't know. But obviously, he claimed to be Chaldean, so he can come for the, so he can come along with him. Obtained permission to replace the Chaldean priest originally appointed to assist me, but who was unable by reason of his advanced age to undertake the journey. So as an assistant, he was given a Chaldean priest, couldn't come, so this other priest told him because he's Chaldean. So all of this, I'm supposed to just ignore it and just think like, okay, the Chaldeans were just Assyrians, because I have not seen any old manuscripts. And if somebody, and I've welcomed people because I love to learn. I'm learning every day, and I could be 100%. Maybe one day somebody's gonna, something is gonna come from Mesopotamia. I know I have a lot of archaeologist friends and historians, and one day somebody's gonna knock on my door and say, "Hey, look at this. This is gonna prove that every single thing that we said is right." That might happen. But until then, I have not seen that the Nestorian was considered Assyrian, or that we were considered Assyrian somehow. And that if anything, that's what I meant. And if anything, from what I saw, is that's more likely that the Nestorians were Chaldeans, because prior to that, there wasn't anything documented. I'll give you some, regarding the deportation and the idea of it's so difficult to go north. Okay, Mesopotamians traveled to India, Afghanistan, Egypt, different parts of the world for different things. India was over 1,500 miles away from Ur, and yet they traveled and came back with the items that they needed. Ur is only a little bit over 700 miles from Nineveh. And if you Google this and how long it might take using maybe caravans, it would probably be said, like, depending on whether depending on like if they encounter any opposition, like 40 days. So what would be such a big deal if they could travel to India and different parts of the world? What's the big deal about traveling to Nineveh and somehow reaching there? We've traveled from Ur all the way, okay, to the United States. I mean, how would that? So 2,000 years from now, people are going to look at this and they're going to wonder, how did they travel? We traveled. That's not something that's not enough proof to say we're not the same people. One, again, there's a huge list of individuals, writers, priests that left their mark. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you so much, Weam. That was amazing. I have so many questions.
Go ahead.
Okay.
And I might not be able to answer them, by the way.
That's fine. That's
okay.
totally fine.
Okay.
So, you were saying about early sources that mention Assyrians, right? From early sources from Mesopotamia. So there are many saints, actually, many saints and church fathers from Mesopotamia that we have, like Saint Michael Rabo, or Mar Edde, Saint Ephraim. So you have these saints who mention Assyrians, that we know that they use the term in a modern way, like Mar Edde, when he's crossing from the Roman side of the border to the Persian side of the border, he calls it Atur, right? Saint Jacob Bar Salibi, he says the prophecy of Isaiah 19:23-25, he says that's being fulfilled in the church. The prophecy between the Assyrians and the Egyptians, he says that's currently happening. Because of our people. So so we have sources that are ancient Mesopotamian sources that are citing the word Assyrian. I don't think that's
Assyria.
Both.
No.
Yes.
You had a guest. No, you had a guest. I looked it up before I came on because you had a guest. I don't know when, because I was just scrolling quickly, where he was saying that Mar Ade and the apostles that came to Mesopotamia were Assyrians. I looked it up. That's
I'm not saying that though, yeah.
No, but I give you an example because anything you tell me, I would have to look it up. Okay.
That's okay. Please look it up. But I'm telling you. So
but you're telling me, but I have to see with my own eyes.
Right. That's okay. See it. I'm telling you to.
Okay. So should I research?
Okay. Isaiah, if you put Isaiah 19,
I can. Okay, let me
Isaiah 19:23-25. It's in the Bible.
Oh, okay. Wait. You're going into the Bible, but okay, that's fine. I have no issue.
So Isaiah 19:23-25, it says Assyrians, and then Saint Jacob Bar Salibi, who's after the Bible, Saint Jacob Bar Salibi is saying that this prophecy is fulfilled in the church, between the church in Mesopotamia and the church in Egypt, because the verse says Assyrians and Egyptians. Isaiah 19:23-25, and Bar Salibi talks about it. So
okay,
that was one
answer. Yeah, but you had a guess.
But let me finish the another thing. By the way, I want you to know my background. I don't believe Chaldean is just a religious term. I don't believe Chaldean is just the astrology, whatever. I believe it is an ethnic term. I'm not against Chaldeans. I'm not against using the name. I will never deny someone using the name. I identify as Chaldean. I just believe it's the same people. It's the same thing. So Assyrian, Chaldean, Syriac, it's all the same. They're all the same people. This is my opinion. I'm not anti-Chaldean or whatever that crazy guy told you on the Twitter thing. So the Pope, that he one of the titles he gave to the union with the Church of the East heads was Pope, Patriarch of the East Assyrians. At one point, he called them.
Who did that?
The Pope during the union with the Church of the East. He calls him the patriarch of the East Assyrians. Please look this up.
I think somebody sent me that, and then when I looked it up, and you're right, and I never denied the Assyrians there, because like I said, I don't think that they vanished. Okay, but my point is that when I looked, I forgot if it was that I looked up, where it was patriarch of the Assyrians. Then the author was the patriarch or the Chaldean patriarch. So then I tried to read, what is this? There was no material outside. Here's what I have noticed with regards to the word Assyrian, which, by the way, this one says that it says that Barsalabi is Syriac.
That's right.
And that the other one is, he highlights Assyria, that it's not specifically Assyrian.
Michael Rabo?
Isaiah 19:23. The passage from the Bible is a prophetic vision of peace between the ancient enemies, Egypt,
Well, why don't
Assyria.
you just pull up the verse and read it? We could just pull it up. So, I just pulled it up. In that day, there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria. The Assyrians will go to Egypt, and the Egyptians will go to Assyria. The Egyptians and Assyrians will worship together. In that day, Israel will be the third, along with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing on the earth. The Lord Almighty will bless them, saying, "Blessed be Egypt, my people, Assyria, my handiwork."
I saw that. Okay, so I saw that verse, and it proves that the Assyrians existed. But then how does it prove that Chaldeans are Assyrians?
I'm not saying that.
But that's right.
But that's not my claim.
Right now, like, we're not in dispute with anything. We are both agreed.
I have questions to understand your side. I'm not trying to argue with you.
Okay. Can you repeat what I'm trying to find? My thing is there's a huge gap. Okay, so the Bible aside, because the Bible was not written, there's a period between, like, especially from the first century AD, and even actually before that, up until the mid to late 1800s, you can barely find an Assyrian, a known Assyrian. The ones that you do find, their names have been meddled with in the identity, unless you dig deep. What happened during this time? If they continued, which I think they did, as tribes somewhere scattered.
Why do you think they did?
Why do I think they survived?
They continued, yeah.
Oh, because I have seen their name come up in several places, documents, but just as Assyrian tribes, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, which proves, that they did exist. Okay. Where when St. Thomas the Apostle came to Mesopotamia, there was different groups, including the Assyrians, who embraced Christianity. But what the question for me is, because right now, this whole debate came about not because whether I believe they exist or not, it's because the Assyrians don't believe that we are Chaldeans of ancient times.
So I don't have any problem claiming ancient Chaldean civilization. That's I'm actually proud of that. I just have questions about some of the points that you made.
Okay, and the Chaldean account of Genesis, have you ever read that by George Smith?
No.
He's a British archaeologist. He is the one who, he's a British archaeologist who published this in 1867. He went to Nineveh, I believe twice, and then on the third time he died, and he wasn't able to complete the voyage. In that, he quotes how the
Tatian is another early Christian who identifies as an Assyrian.
No, I think what's the period for that?
2nd century.
Okay, hold on. I want to read, though, first. I'm going to read what George Smith wrote, okay? And then I'm going to go to that question about Tatian. So if you can just give me 1 second, please. Because I have too much.
This is who Saint Michael that I was telling you about. They put on Saint Michael says Syrians east of the Euphrates are descended from Assyrians. So there's a lot of that, but you don't have a problem
Yeah,
with
but
it.
but they're not
You believe
proving
they
to
can,
me. They're not proving to me that I'm not Chaldean originally. I'm not. Why
exactly,
am I
exactly.
even defending?
No,
Right.
no. So
But
you already
they're trying
agree.
to prove. But no, but they have a lack of there's what I am trying to figure out is the lack. To me, that lack proves that there was a lack of they were very in a weak place. That's all that proves to me, that they were not what they're claiming, and that it couldn't have disappeared for that long without anybody coming up. And all of a sudden, in the mid to late 1800s, their name starts coming up where, hey, there's an Assyrian group, and that group becomes very large. And before that, why wouldn't Maria Theresa Esmar, who is a Christian, not mention them? If there was even, she had Muslim friends, she had Chaldean friends, she brought up the Yazidis, she brought every single group. How could it be possible that there wasn't a single Assyrian she came across?
Do you believe that Chaldean Catholics and Assyrian Church of the East are the same people?
Well, I know that the Assyrian Church of the East wasn't even officially established until 1976. That's a very recent. The initial.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I don't
It
understand.
was officially established. Look it up. One was anybody who's watching, look up. One was the Assyrian Church of the East, officially established, 1976.
I don't. Are you talking about the ancient Church of the East?
The Church of the East was
There's
established
two
in the
churches
first.
of the East. There's the
Oh,
Assyrian.
I'm sorry. I thought you said Assyrian.
Yeah, Assyrian Church of the East and ancient.
Was officially established. Look it up. 1976.
When was the Assyrian Church of the East established? First century AD.
No.
I just typed it right now.
I'm sorry. Okay. Hold on.
Okay.
I'll send you. I'll do my own, like, more authentic research than just the internet. I'll put some words. Hold on 1 second. The Assyrian Church of the East.
Do you mean when the ethnic title was added?
The Assyrian Church of the East officially adopted to current name in 1976.
The name. Okay.
The name. So it wasn't called the Assyrian.
You said the church was established in that. Okay. So
no.
Okay,
but my point is, everything associated with the title Assyrian is modern.
Forget the name Assyrian.
No, that's important because
I know. I'm just trying to ask you something right now.
No, because you know why? Because when we were trying to figure out about the Chaldeans, we thought, oh, maybe we were being told by Assyrians who told us we're Assyrians.
You're Chaldean. I'm not whatever.
No, but this is but who
just
did
wait,
the Assyrians ever admit this?
Just wait.
Okay.
The Chaldean Catholics, the Chaldeans, and the Church of the East, that is not Catholic. Okay? The Church
that's not right.
Not Catholic, and the Chaldeans who are Catholic, they are the same ethnic group?
Well, yeah, because the Church of the East started, from the beginning.
Okay,
right.
Same ethnic group. So both people in both communions are the same ethnicity. Now let me ask you this. Are the Syriac Orthodox and the Syriac Catholics, are they the same ethnic group too?
I mean, I don't know about that as much. All I know that they existed from the beginning. So I would assume it would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know enough though about it.
My next question is, do you know that Saint Ephraim, he said that Ur and Akkad are actually in the north, not in the south. So Ur is what is today Urfa, and Akkad is what is today Nisibis. He says this in his commentary on Genesis. So Ur and Akkad, that we think they're in the south, they're actually not, according to Saint Ephraim. They're in the north.
So that's according to him. How many people is according to? It depends.
I'm not a saint. So.
Well, right, and I'm not either. I
But
don't.
he is. He is a saint.
It doesn't mean he's still human. He's not God, right?
I think he's smarter than modern scientists.
It doesn't. Oh, you okay? Right now,
Mm.
bring up any topic, and you're gonna have a different view. Different. I'm sure he had people dispute him. Yes or no?
Not on that point.
No, that's
Everyone
impossible.
agreed on that point back
He's
then.
not a god. No, but there's no. So you're saying the Chaldeans don't agree on this? The ones that the historian
Yeah,
Chaldeans,
they do. Yeah, they
they
do. They do.
they what? They do,
They,
they agree that
they,
Ur is not in the south.
yes, they do.
Okay,
In history, they do.
then maybe I'm wrong. And that
That's
doesn't
why
take.
I'm a huge Chaldean saint.
Okay,
Huge
well,
Chaldean saint.
in that case, it doesn't matter because that means because all it proves for me, that's not what I'm studying. For me, what I'm studying, what I'm trying to find, which nobody can, and even the people that dispute me on Twitter, I welcome them, including this person who wrote this whole entire thing and has it on the internet. Chaldeans are Assyrians, and the first paragraph he has is all wrong information. Every single thing he said. Is this the best that they can do? The people that are trying to prove this, is this the best that they can do? Let me tell you.
I have 3 more questions for you. 3 more. Okay, when you were talking about that book with the title, you said Arab, but inside the book it says Chaldean. You're talking about Abraham, right?
No, it was Ilyas al-Musali.
Okay.
Yeah. He's a priest in the 1600s.
Second question: what does Mesopotamia mean to you?
Well, I mean, it's not even the original word. You
Beth
know,
Nahrain.
Yeah, Beth Nahrain. I mean, to me, it means my birthland and my heritage, part of my heritage. Because part of my heritage is also American.
What does Beth Nahrain encompass? What's the land of Beth Nahrain today?
Several regions, including several regions, whether it's southeastern Turkey, whether it's south of Iraq.
Beautiful. So this is all our homeland, right?
Yeah, of course. And it was all Mesopotamia was changed in 1921. The name by the British when they started like slicing it up like a cake, into different areas. But all those regions, we were from the same area.
And then, so I have 2 more questions. What does the word Surat mean to you?
To me, it means it's one of the words that's used to describe our languages. Chaldean is another word that's used, and in more modern times, Aramaic.
Okay, so Surat, you would agree that this describes the dialects of one language that are spoken in the mountains and in the plains, right? Nashatura,
Yes.
Nashadishta. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. And then you were saying or something you said too about okay. Because you don't deny the existence of Assyrians in history, you said you don't deny it. So do you believe that you are a descendant of that Isaiah prophecy and that mixture of Assyrians into the Chaldean people? Like, because you're saying they didn't disappear, right? So that means they are somewhere. If they're somewhere, where are they? Is it you?
What are they when they can? I mean, they continued. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Like, I mean, people could have intermarried. I can't say. I don't know if there's not a single.
In your opinion, I mean, what happened?
Yeah, in my opinion, what happened? I'm actually curious. Yes, what happened? I know. Yes, the Chaldean dynasty did. People say that they wiped them out. Okay. No matter how you wipe any people, or you're more likely to wipe out a land, completely destroy it, than the people, where they're you don't have some kind of survivors that are going to continue. So it seems like from the material that I've seen that they survived, but they were not enough to continue the name in the sense or anywhere close. And I'm going to read something to you by George Smith. I finally found it. Oh, I didn't. Yeah, okay. Okay, to show that this has been going on, and sadly, the thing that is happening now almost feels like like we are repeating history, partly because it's like an old pattern that needs to heal. Part of the reason that I'm even doing this interview is because I believe, and tomorrow I have an interview with a very distinguished person as well, who I think is going to help. I think just any dialogue helps.
Please
That
plug
we
it.
can.
Please plug it, Weam. Tell us about where we can watch it, all that stuff, the time.
Yeah, I will. We're gonna try to do it. Him and I are meeting. It's supposed to start at 2. We just don't know if we can do it live or not, because he's gonna be in town. So I'm lucky enough that it's gonna be in person. This is usually
Great.
rare, but just by chance, that's why. So we're gonna see if we can do it live or not. If it's live, it's gonna be at 2 p.m. tomorrow. 2 p.m. Yes. If it's not live, I will try to either post it like tomorrow, later in the day, or by Saturday. So regarding George Smith, he says, although it was known that Assyria borrowed its civilization and written characters from Babylonia, yet as the Assyrian nation was throughout the greater part of its independent existence hostile to the southern and older kingdom, it could not be guessed beforehand that the peculiar national traditions of Babylonia would have been transported to Assyria. But then later what he says, it is nevertheless out of these, like he talks about some of the information that they have, it's not perfect, they don't have everything. Like attention was early drawn to the fact by Sir Henry Rawlinson, who pointed out several coincidences between the geography of Babylonia and the account of Eden in Genesis, and suggested the great probability that the account in Genesis had a Babylonian origin. It is nevertheless not out of these imperfect materials that we have at present to piece together our knowledge of the early legends of Babylonia and Assyria. Most, if not all of them are, it must be remembered, of Chaldean or Babylonian origin, the Assyrians having either slavishly copied Babylonian origins or simply put into a new form the story they had borrowed from their southern neighbors. Now, this, someone to call themselves, what is he saying?
He's saying, can you tell me what makes someone who calls themselves Assyrian and someone who calls himself Chaldean different today? Today, what's the difference between them? Just the name.
I honestly don't think I think if we saw each other, we would not be having this conversation. And if we did, somebody once said, like in the thing, he said, you guys shouldn't be arguing about this. There's more important things. And because I can't keep up with some of the responses, and I wish I could, but I wanted to say, look, we are partially having fun with this. We are expressing ourselves. We love each other. Most of my friends who are really pro being Chaldean have Assyrian wives or vice versa. Okay, if you put us together, we're gonna dance together. Some of the comedians that I watch that are Assyrian, that are we forget about all of this, but we need to address this. You know what? Because I do believe that we need to move past it, because we do have other things, more important things to deal with. And
so
once we get this out,
my patriarch, I'm Syriac Orthodox, by the way. My patriarch, His Holiness Mar Ephraim II, he said he has this proposal that to unite our people. So he says what we can do is we can have like an umbrella title of Suraye, and then we can have a subtitle. So like, I'm Suraye Chaldean, I'm Suraye Assyrian. What do you think about this?
Yeah, this I have no issue with that, but unfortunately, when I told you when I was sitting with the delegates, and this was part of the reason why ISIS happened, is because we started having a lot of meetings after 2003 because the Christians were really being affected. And so our leaders really tried, are the Chaldean leaders with the Assyrian leaders, and nobody was willing to do that enough to the point where I think that subjected us to the violence that took place in 2014. And we wanted to unite in a different way so that we can prevent that from happening. And so it's that part is on us, I have to say.
So
If we were to, yeah.
He's saying here, he's clarifying his question. He's saying, yes, okay, we're the same, but when you have two people, one saying Chaldean, one is saying Assyrian, what is differentiating them? Is it a different narrative of history, or is it churches?
I think the problem is mostly coming. I think the Assyrians want to. This is the problem. It seems like they're wanting to say that we are ethnically Assyrian. Mm-hmm. I don't really know people. There are some that are more like saying, no, you guys are not even Assyrian. Okay, but there are a few. The majority, we are in a defense state, not on an aggressive.
I see what you're saying.
We're defending ourselves. We're like, no, we are.
Here's the issue with this, though. The issue is both sides, you and them, are agreeing that you're the same people. The difference is both sides understanding of what that same people is. You're saying that same people are Chaldean. They're saying that same people are Assyrian. So by saying the same people are Chaldean, you're right that it's the same people, but to them, you're imposing your name on them.
I'm not.
But no. I'm not saying you are.
Oh, that's how they're seeing it. Yes. Yeah. But I mean, historically, even if you look at the history of how long the name lasted, our name was, you can find manuscripts and you can find authors from 700 years ago, and theirs started from 200 years ago. Okay, so who get, just in any fashion, who gets to like any culture, even in a family, who gets the person that goes first is the elder, right? We are considered, even let's say neither one of us are from, forget about our ancestors. Let's say we have nothing to do with or Assyria. We're none of those same people. Okay, we're totally a different group that just popped up after Christianity. Documents show that the Chaldean name was continuous from the beginning up until now. The Assyrians started coming up in the 18th. So shouldn't the older name be taken? Yeah, if we were going to look at it this way, right?
So are you counting, like, because the Bible mentions Assyrians first. So does that mean they're older?
No, I'm talking about in the 1800s. There was, the Bible was already, okay. Yeah, okay. I'm talking about let's start from Christianity, because what do we have in common? We have our Christian faith, our Aramaic language, and we're from the same land, right? We have those three in common. So let's say that anything before Christianity, we're gonna put an X on that. That doesn't. Okay, starting from that point, Chaldeans are older. That's just that's what the documents say. That's what proof says. I can sit with anybody. I'll give you all the, like, whatever books I have and everything. If you bring me an Assyrian and he can show me that they are older through the authors, and I have a book coming out, and it doesn't have to be my book. There's a lot of books already, but I'm trying, when I write, I try to simplify things, because in academia, oftentimes what happens, you go to so much into, no. If I just list things with a date, you will see that we are older just by the evidence. And then their names started coming up mid-1800 to late. That's just how it is. The fact that Maria Teresa Esmer never mentioned them, and the fact that Ilyas al-Musili didn't, and then Joseph and Naim, these are authors. These documented their names.
But I gave you examples. I gave you examples. I said the Pope called them that. I told you Michael Rabo uses it. I told you Bar Salibi uses it.
Between the 1st century AD and between 1800s?
Yeah.
I have to do my research. Okay, I can't. I can't take your word.
No, I want you to please.
Yeah, I will. And I'm sure that there's that word, because I told you they didn't vanish. But the majority of the people that are documented are the Chaldeans.
Okay, and then I have another question in the comments. What does Suraye mean?
Well, Suryoye means Christian, and then from the books that I read, it says that part of the reasons that like archaeologists and historians and missionaries thought that they gave the word Assyrian to the group based on what the books say is because they thought that Suryoye was they translated into their had into Assyrian.
So what does Mshihaya mean?
Shiha is
No, not
Jesus.
Mshiha, Mshihaya.
I don't know what Mishihaya
Like
means.
in the Chaldean mass, you say Eta Mshihata. What does Mshihata mean? Or Mshihaya or Mshihata. It means Christian. So Suraya can't
Oh,
mean
I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, yeah.
So Mshihaya means Christian. Suraya can't mean Christian because Mshihaya means Christian. Suraya has to mean something else. Suraya corresponds to Surath. So if you're Suraya, you speak Surath, right?
I don't know because based on the books, it says that these are the individuals who even there was a person, a missionary, who considered Nestorians, I don't know what he called them because he didn't understand like what Nestorian was, and Nestoraya, then it was changed to Nestoraya, and they said, no, you can't say these. And so they were explaining how it's difficult for people who are not native speakers to understand what the words that were being shared. But again,
so would you call Surath, when they say, oh, what language is that? You would say, oh, it's Christian. I speak Christian. No, I speak Surath.
Right.
I speak Surath because I'm Suratha.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Surath, from what I understand too, is I think they said that it comes from the Syriac.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Syriac.
So Syriac is the English, but it comes from our language. Syriac comes from our language. That's the English version, right?
Well, I have more to learn, so
I'm so excited for tomorrow's. I can't wait for it.
And he seems so I mean, he's so welcoming of this conversation, and I think because him and I both have the same intentions, and whether it's me or whichever groups, I really encourage everybody to have. I'm so glad that you have this platform that people can communicate this.
Oh, let me ask you this, Weam. Yeah. Am I the big bad wolf that guy made me out to be?
I'm gonna go tell. I'm gonna go tell him what a nice. This was the nicest Lions Den I've ever been to. And I want to say to Frederick Apram, I wasn't trying to like throw you under the bus or anything, but I did research your paper, and so respectfully, I was just referencing it. So.
Thank you so much again. If you want to plug anything, you want to say anything else.
I thank you for the time. I think we had fun, and just continue doing what you're doing. Continue having conversations about this.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.